You're listening to the WHIP Appeal Show hosted by MistressCandy69 from the BDSM Alive Radio Network. Well, hello. It is Thursday, April 27th of 2023. And yes, you are listening to Mistress Candy live this evening. So in a couple of weeks, Mistress will be going on vacation with her hot young boyfriend, so I may be having to do some recorded shows for while I'm away, so you don't, stray away from Mistress, so to speak. But I won't be going away until, right before, Memorial Day, and I think I won't be back until, 10 days later or something like that, or something of that effect. So, get your kink on now while Mistress is live on the air. And I'm not sure, I think the phone lines are open, so if you want to call in and you're listening and you're kind of home, just blah, 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 the phone number to call into the radio show is 516-406-3512. And hello and welcome, everyone. Of course, I want to thank Blitzkid for allowing me to use the song She Dominates for my show, because it's very fitting for myself. So let's see, what's on the agenda tonight? Tonight I was going to kind of divulge more on the questions and answers that I've been getting tons and tons of crazy emails from people who actually listen to the show. Some people are stumbling upon my show of finding, podcasts on the internet. I've been getting some really great emails that they found my show. They've been listening and they're hooked ever since. So thank you for telling Mistress that. I really appreciate that, by the way. Kind of some interesting subjects for tonight. I was on my Instagram yesterday and today, kind of updating some stuff and taking off some older photos and putting some other photos on. And, kind of interesting. I was going through some emails on here, and let's see what's in here right now. So I got, let's see, what's this? Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, you ready? This guy writes, Hi, Mistress, how are you? Good morning. And I said, okay, good morning to you too. Thank you for accepting my request. He goes, I hope you have a wonderful day. So then a couple of days later, he writes, good morning. So I said, hi, where are you from and how old are you? He goes, I'm from Maryland and I'm 43, and yourself? Kind of interesting. How come you fellas don't read my fucking profile? On all of my social media, it basically says that I'm from Long Island, New York. It doesn't take rocket scientists to go look at one's profile and see where they're from. I just get so sick of answering people. I feel like writing, don't you know how to fucking read? Don't you, you look at my page and you look at my pictures, but you can't see that it says I'm from New York? How fucking dumb can one person be? But anyway, I keep getting a lot of these people that want to photograph me. They claim to be photographers. Listen, I have one photographer who I really love to use. He is absolutely great. He took beautiful photos of me a couple of months ago, and honestly, he is amazing. I really enjoy him. So thanks for the offers, guys, but Mistress is really not interested, in that type of stuff. Now, if you want to possibly become my submissive, or maybe try to engage in some sort of conversation with me about kink and fetish, I'm cool with that. But, when you get kind of personal and want to know a little bit about my personal life, I only share my personal life when I feel it's necessary, or if I want to talk about it. I really don't go into full detail about everything I do in my personal life. Why? Because it's considered personal. So, I just kind of leave it at that. So it's kind of interesting. I was at work today, and our office manager is training this new girl at work. So on her first day at the job today, we're kind of all sitting around and having lunch, and this was really fucking funny. My office manager proceeds to tell this new girl because I don't know, I had come in there and they were talking about some dirty stuff, and I said, oh, sounds like my type of conversation. So the girls chuckled, and there was a male doctor like kind of standing in the background, and I forget what they were talking about, but they asked me like something, and I said, oh, I know a lot about them, blah, blah, blah. So I get into this detailed conversation about silicone sex dolls right now. And if you remember a couple of shows ago, I kind of delved on the bizarre fetishes, and one of the bizarre fetishes was called agalmatophilia, which was the fetish of idolizing dolls, statues, or objectifying them, or of something of the like. So today I proceeded to give the girls and the doctor at work a little bit of kind of stuff that I do. So my office manager tells this young woman, she goes, oh, in case you didn't know it, so-and-so is kind of like a semi-retired, or she's like, are you retired? I said, no, I'm not retired. I'm still a dominatrix. And the woman's eyes literally fell out of her head, this woman. So she's like, so tell me what you do or what you've done. So it's kind of an interesting fact of what we were talking about, sex dolls and blow-up dolls. So I proceeded to tell them the story about Blackmail Pig, where a couple of shows ago, I think I had discussed this, where he kind of broke his doll, and I had told him to get rid of it. Like, following an order. Like when a mistress gives a submissive a directive or an order, they're expected to follow through and carry it out. And if you do not, then it's obviously looks in my eyes like you're not really submissive because you're not willing to take an order from me. So anyway, I proceed to tell them about the story about Blackmail Pig with the $6,000 silicone fuck doll that he, broke the hips. So I then proceed to tell them the rest of the story, that I had him go to the hardware store and buy like a tarp and some rope and some other stuff. And the girl is looking at me and she's like, why would you tell him that? I'm like, well, he lives in an apartment complex, and I thought it'd be good for him to kind of, instead of chucking this doll into the dumpster, wrapping it up and disguising it as trash. So the moral of the story here is that the woman's face was kind of like, holy shit. Because as I'm progressing telling her the story, I'm like, this was a submissive who I met online, who actually wanted to be blackmailed. It was more of like consensual fantasy blackmail. And, of the sort. So I had played with him for a number of years. And if you go back to, I think it was season 2, episode either 5, 6, or 7, or one of them, bizarre fetishes or blackmail fantasy, I might have hashed a little bit about that. It was pretty funny. So I had told them to listen to this show. So they are actually listening. One of the girls at work was listening to it on her actual lunch hour when she took lunch with us and she wasn't supposed to. But anyway, so she actually listened to one of my shows, comes back into the office and goes, holy shit, your show's fucking hilarious. Very educational, like, not that I'm into that kind of stuff. She's like, but wow, that was really informative. Like, I have some friends that are kind of kinky. Do you mind if I pass this along to them? I said, absolutely not. I want you to spread it around. I want you to tell people about it. Because, that's how you gain your listeners. And, who knows, they could be potential guests on the show, or potential people that may have questions but don't know the answer to them. So basically that's when I come in and kind of give you this show and kind of talk about this kind of stuff. So basically I continue to tell them the story about how when Blackmail Pig wrapped up his broken silicone sex doll and put it in a tarp and wrapped it up and tied it up in rope and chucked it in his dumpster. And one of the people that lived in the complex had called the police on him and accused him of, like, dumping a body. So you should have seen the look on these ladies' and gentlemen's faces when I was talking about this in the office today. And they were fucking dying. They were like, oh, my God, that's hilarious. And one of the doctors looks at me and goes, wow, that's an interesting story. I could see why the guy would like get in trouble. He's like, so what was the outcome of it? And I then tell him, I said, well, if you really want to know the real story, you should listen to my radio show. And I showed him where to go to listen to it. So he actually just texted me a little while ago and goes, wow, that show was hilarious. He goes, oh my God. He goes, that's great, like great stuff. He goes, you should write a book. And, as I think about how many people in my life through the whole 33 years of me being a dominatrix, I probably should write a fucking novel. I have so many fucking stories between subs, other doms, vanilla people, all kinds of shit that I probably could make for a very good fucking autobiography about myself, or a BDSM journey of becoming a mistress or a dominatrix and kind of living that lifestyle and coming across all sorts of people. So, I mean, that would be kind of good. Maybe I should consider doing that at some point. But it's kind of interesting because the whole rest of the day after this whole like lunchtime, kinky atmosphere that I had created at work, it was kind of funny. A lot of the girls I work with were like, wow, you're hilarious. You do some things that I have never heard of or have seen in my life. And I'm like, well, that's because you're not in the same lifestyle as me. Now, if you had decided that you wanted to be a submissive or even delve in the act of submission, or wanted to per se become a dominant, like whether a mistress or a master, I said, then, you and I would have something to talk about. So it's kind of, interesting to hear other people's perspectives on your chosen path of career. Now, for those who don't know, Mistress works in the dental field. I've been in the dental field just as long as I've been a dominatrix. So one of the doctors at work found out about it and comes up to me later in the day and goes, wow, I look at you in a different light now because, of course, dentistry is considered a form of sadism. People believe that dentists are sadists because they inflict pain on others. Not really the case, but I can see why people would think that. So what do you know? Dentistry and dominatrix both start with D's, right? So it was kind of funny, and they had said, wow, this is pretty awesome. You live a life where you get to torture people in and out of work. So I thought it was kind of the ironic part of the whole deal that had happened today. Like today I had to work from like 9 to 6:30. I stayed pretty late today. Normally I don't stay that late, but the other doctor had needed help and I was required to stay, so I had stayed. And of course I tried to rush home so I would get home on time to do my show, and I had told them, I was like, I'm not staying till 7 because I have to go home and get ready to do my radio show. And they're like, okay. So we moved some patients around so I can get out a little earlier. And because, after them hearing the joys of my show, the WHIP Appeal, and of course I was telling them about the network and, things that I've done in my career. And some of the doctors kind of knew about it already, but then there's other ones who do not know. And they're kind of like, oh, you're such a phenomenal assistant and now you do this stuff. And I said, but I was doing them all at the same time. Like, when I was younger, I was a submissive to a married couple while I was in high school going to dental assisting. So, I mean, like, there's all sorts of different things that I've done in my life that I guess you can say dentistry and domination kind of go hand in hand to some degree. Now they understand why I'm pretty good with those, like, patients who are a little apprehensive, or one would say from a dominatrix point of view that somebody's topping from the bottom. So it's like kind of the same type of perspective to some degree. So, it's kind of funny. A lot of people who are into kink and fetish then have a lot of these vanilla friends who are not into the such, and when they find out about like their married friends like putting clothespins on each other's nipples and like whacking them off, like smacking them up to cause like some pain for some intense nipple torture, or you may hear about your married friend taking a rolled up newspaper and spanking her husband with it, or what my friend Casey Carter likes to call pervertibles, like household items that could be used as implements of pain and pleasure. So a pervertible is like a spatula or a wooden spoon or what's another one that I like to use on occasion, which is a fly swatter. Every motherfucker in America has a fly swatter in the house. You know how many times fly swatters are used in BDSM for spanking purposes, and people don't realize it? You take that fucking fly swatter off the wall that just killed a whole bunch of flies, and there's like blood on it, and then you take it and smack it up somebody's nice, ripe, juicy ass. Kind of the same thing. The idea is to create the total impact. So this is considered impact play, when you take an implement and you spank somebody or hit them with it. Now, you definitely don't want to be hitting above the gluteus medius. Now, for the people who don't know what the gluteus medius is, it's actually part of your lower back that connects to the top of your ass cheek. That is an area where you do not hit anyone. And the reason is for that is because the kidneys are right in that area. And if you think about it, pretty much every other organ you have is covered by muscle and bone, right? So, or mostly bones. So when you think you're going to smack a submissive or hit a submissive with an implement, you kind of want to avoid anything in the lower back region, unless you're using something soft for sensual domination. But you do not take heavy-duty canes, spatulas, wooden spoons, paddles, any of that nature, and smack a fella or a ma'am or a woman, above that region, because you can cause some serious kidney damage. So again, maybe in another show I'll have like a whole thing about anatomy and the points of where to and where to not strike a submissive or strike a play partner of something of that nature. So you really have to be careful when you're playing these types of things. So back to the pervertibles there. And of course, I have to say, the first time Casey Carter ever told me about them, I was laughing because I was like, I just like to call them housewares. There's different types of housewares. For instance, okay, how many people out there listening to the show has tried to do some kind of bondage, whether it's self-bondage, with ropes? There are some really good people who are into tying their own knots. I actually have this friend named on FetLife by the name of Thomas Bonds, who actually is a ropesman, and he loves to do shibari, and he likes to do some other forms of rope suspension, and he loves knots. He makes the most beautiful knots I've ever seen in my life. Like how people admire each other's work, whether you make something out of clay and turn it into something gorgeous, or you're, doing this or doing that, and you're like, wow, that came out really nice. So, these are things that you would do in that type of situation. Like, I admire him for his rope work and his shibari technique, and his knots are absolutely gorgeous. So, people who do self-bondage, they make all sorts of implements and materials. I, for one, say if you're going to be experiencing bondage for the first time, you definitely want to have a pair of safety scissors or shears handy and close by, because God forbid you cannot untie your knots. And, if you have somebody tied up, most people, when they're in this state, they are enjoying it. But then you have the one or two that are kind of like, oh God, and they're freaking out during a scene. So what do you do in this situation? If one, you don't remember how you tied your knots and you're not sure how to get your partner out of this type of predicament, you would absolutely want to have the safety shears on hand so you can cut that person out of the restraints. Now, I like to tell people when they're doing self-bondage, they should get something called bondage tape. You can buy it anywhere, like I think eBay, Amazon, or even Fetish. There's a company called Fetish something, I forget, Fetish Fantasies. They even have a bondage tape that is really like thin plastic. It's not even so much tape. It's kind of like a cellophanic plastic that you can kind of adhere to the other piece without a sticky adhesive. So those are something that you can try that will definitely, bring you to the point of having fun, and you won't have to worry about, not being able to undo your knots or any of that nature. So these are things you should definitely try. I, for one, like to use pantyhose for beginner bondage because plus, you have a submissive, you're not sure how they're going to really act, and you're like, oh God, what do I do in this situation? So the pantyhose, for one, is very good. One, it comes off very easily. Even if you tie the most tightest knot, it still comes off easily. You could also use the shears, or you can just, do some, like, I'm sure if anybody out there's been a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, they usually teach you how to make some knots. So, you should be able to do some knot work yourself, but if you're uncomfortable with it, make sure you have a scissor or something close by to where you can, if you have to get out of it in a quick, instance, you're able to do that without struggling and causing, yourself grief. The last thing you want to have is a submissive that you're playing with, making them feel more apprehensive than they already are when they're in bondage like that. Because that type of feeling is supposed to be good and not bad. So you don't want to make somebody feel like, for instance, if you and your partner are playing and you're not sure what to do, and you definitely don't want your play partner to see you kind of struggling, like, oh God, what the fuck? Because the initial instinct that other person on the other end is going to have is that this motherfucker doesn't know what they're doing, and they're making me nervous. And then what happens when nervousness sets in, it takes over, and it becomes the fear engulfs you. That's the number one rule not to do, is not to make your play partner feel that you are incompetent when you are sessioning or scening with them. So you definitely want to try to avoid that. So this is why I suggest to couples who are kind of new to kink, that are learning about it, to use safety things like pervertibles, spatulas, wooden spoons, fly swatters, clothespins, wooden clothespins. If you really have something at home and you want to try hot wax on the nipples, you can light like a regular candle, but I don't recommend it. They actually make candles that are safe for wax play. And what I mean by that is they're not as waxy as the candles that you get like at the dollar store or like anywhere else. So, and they're meant for body play. So you kind of want to look for body play candles, or if you're going to use regular candles, make sure you got hot water to clean it up after, because sometimes the wax doesn't come off so great, and like a lot of people got issues. So these are some things that you can do to play or whatever. Back to the bondage thing. There's different types of bondage. You can do feet or foot and shoe bondage. Bastonado, which is foot torture, where I've seen individuals take these like really fine silken ropes and kind of tie them around each toe, and then there's this long wooden like bar, like a spreader bar, and you attach the ropes to the spreader bar. So basically their toes are being like pulled from the foot, and then actually your soles of your feet are very vulnerable. So anybody who has a foot and sole fetish can actually get off on doing some bastonado with people. And bastonado, again, is like foot and sole torture. So, and not soul like your body, mind, and soul. It's your feet soul. So just make sure you get that right. So you know that bastonado is the torture of feet. Now, a lot of people, and such as myself too, I've done bastonado where I've actually incorporated tickle torture into it. And I, for one, know how goddamn ticklish people's feet are because my feet are extremely ticklish. Actually, for instance, my bow and toe over the weekend was sitting in a chair in his room, and we were kind of like watching something on the television. And I had my foot, I was laying on his bed, and I had my foot like hanging off the bed and kind of like on him. So he decides to kind of sneakily try to pull my shoe off. So I kind of knew what he was doing. And I said, okay, go for it. So what do you think he does? He pulls off Mistress's shoe and starts fucking tickling the bottom of my feet to where I didn't kick him, but I was like, you know, in a tickle torture like type thing, where if I was tied up and I had nowhere to go or move, he could easily just tickle torture my feet till I probably pissed myself. So, I mean, like, you know, these are instances that could happen during tickle torture. Now, some mistresses would say, did I give you permission to pee? Then that's other for like tickle torture / punishment. Because you didn't have permission to pee while you were being tickled by Mistress. You were only supposed to just do the tickle torture. But instead, it unleashed, like, look, I've tickle tortured men to where they farted in the dungeons. They've pissed themselves. They've laughed so hard they've thrown up sometimes. I mean, so it depends on, you know, the person, the tickly as opposed to the tickler. So, you know, these are things that you could do when you're, like, you know, tickle torturing someone. So I thought it was kind of funny. Now, with my bow and toe, I've been trying to, like, massage his feet every so often so he's used to feeling me. Now, he is extremely ticklish also, so if you're listening to the show tonight, young man, your feet are in trouble this weekend because you think you're going to tickle Mistress and not get any repercussions out of it. Tisk, tisk, young Jedi, because Mistress will make sure that I tickle you just as equally. So it's kind of funny. But so, you know, the bondage thing is pretty cool to do. And I said, again, there's self-bondage. You can do this bondage tape. You can use pantyhose. You can use thin rope, but only if you have safety shears. I always recommend, and even like my other friends that do like rope and rigging and this and that and suspension, they all say the best thing to have in your arsenal bag is safety shears. You want to make sure you have a nice fucking sharp pair of scissors in there. Not one, but maybe 2 pairs, just in case one gets lost or sometimes other people borrow things. You know, you definitely want to have that stuff. You know, as far as clothespins go, the wooden clothespins are the old-fashioned ones. They're the best. They pinch nipples so goddamn hard. I've even had guys put them on as cock and ball torture. Like, I had this one guy once, I told him to make his cock and balls look like a porcupine for Mistress. And yeah, you're probably laughing about it, but he really did. I think there's a picture of it on my FetLife profile where he had all these fucking clothespins. I had him put clothespins on each, I think it was like 5 or 6 clothespins all around the edge of the testicles. And then I made him like move up like a couple of millimeters and pinch some more skin and put the rest of it. So his ball sack looked like a hedgehog, right? So like, and then as I got down to his shaft, I told him, I said, now you're going to get a nice, tight, like, braided shoelace. And he looks at me and goes, why can't I use the round one? I said, it's not the same effect. You have to have a flat braided shoelace. So he had to go traveling around to get one, but he got one. But I sent him out to the store, mind you, with his balls looking like fucking Sonic the Hedgehog while he had his pants on. So I think when he was at the store, this was a couple of years ago, he had said, "Oh, mistress, I was at the store and one of the clothespins fell out, went down my pant leg and like fell on the floor." And some lady was like, "Excuse me, you just dropped this clothespin." And he's like, "No, I didn't." She said when he was walking around, he noticed clothespins were falling out of his pants. So it was really funny. Apparently he didn't have underpants on, because how could he? His fucking ball sack looked like fucking Sonic the Hedgehog on fire. So, literally fucking... So as he's walking around the store, he's being humiliated by this woman who told him that he was dropping clothespins like he was fucking dropping loose change when he was like out walking in the park. So he comes back and he calls me and he goes, "Mistress, I lost half the clothespins. When I went to the store, they fell out on my pants leg and this lady was chasing me around." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Were you humiliated?" He goes, "Abso-fucking-lutely." He goes, "Then I get home and I have to find more clothespins to reattach them so you wouldn't be dissatisfied." So I wasn't dissatisfied. I laughed because I'm like, now you got to do this all over again. So I made him take all the clothespins off. And I made him count them out to see how many clothespins he had. And he told me he had 50. And I said, "Okay, well, you had 60 before that. So you lost 10 clothespins when you went out." So I said, "So now for each clothespin that you lost, you're going to give yourself 2 more clothespins." And he was like, "What?" He goes, "I don't think my ball sack is that big." I said, "Oh, no, the rest of them are going to go on your cock." And he was like, "What?" I said, "Now, mistress commands you to assemble the clothespins as such." Now, this is like for cock and ball torture. So he's got 6 clothespins on the bottom of his scrotum, up by his asshole in the taint area, they call that. He's got some starting up there and then trailing its way to the base of the penis. So I made him do like, from ass to cock in the beginning. Then I had him take a few. It has to have 5 on one side and 5 on the other. So he, like I said, he looked like a fucking Sonic the Hedgehog. And then I made him take the shoelace, a flat braided shoelace, and kind of wrap it around the base of his testicles while he had all these clothespins on. And then I had him strategically place a clothespin to his cock and balls while it was attached to the shoelace. So he's like, "Why are we doing this?" I said, "Oh, you'll see in a little while." Well, what should I say that I had this fella do? I made him do what is called a zip line, okay? So for those of you who do not know what a zip line is, a zip line is when you take a piece of rope and you attach all the clothespins to the rope or shoestring. And generally, idea is supposed to hook it up to a fan motor. Now, for instance, Mistress used to have this slave online many years ago by the name of Slave Gordon, who actually Mistress still talks to here and there. And this fucking guy actually did a video for me probably about, probably 18 years or so now. I gotta actually contact him to see if he still has it. So Slave Gordon attached his 10 foot of rope to a motor of a fan, okay? This was very specific. And I had him go on webcam because he lived in Georgia at the time, and I was in upstate New York. And I made him go on webcam, and I sent him an email with very detailed instructions to follow to the T. Had him go on webcam with everything all prepared. I watched him place all of the clothespins with the rope, and then he attached it to a fan motor. So as he's standing there with this finished product, and mind you, he had at this point 100 clothespins all over him. They started on his cock and balls and surely made its way up to his nipples and some other various spots. I had him put them on his chest, his nipples. I mean, his fucking tits look like fucking the Chiquita Banana Woman. He could have been like a fucking... All he needed was a grass hula skirt. Basically, he had clothespins everywhere. Around his nipples, he made like these cool designs. So it was a lot of fun. And I said, okay, Gordo, you ready? You ready to make Mistress really happy? And he goes, yeah, what are we going to do? I said, when you feel up to it, when I tell you to, you are to flip the switch for this fucking fan. You should have seen the fucking look on this guy's face. Now, mind you, he totally was submissive. He did whatever the fuck I told him to. And he really wanted to do the zip line for me. He thought it would make me so happy. So, guess what? You ready, folks? He actually flipped the fucking switch. And I gotta tell you, I laughed so fucking hard when I heard the fan motor go on. I laughed so fucking hard. I had tears coming out of my eyes. And he was screaming the whole time. Because basically what the fan motor did was, when you put on like an oscillating fan, so it starts to go. So the end of the rope was kind of on the fan. So as the fan rotated and oscillated, it was literally ripping the clothespins off of him in a very fast kind of domino fashion, right? So I laughed so fucking hard at this guy. I had my girlfriends come over and actually we watched it together, and she never saw anything like this in her life and goes, holy fucking shit, that was some serious shit that I just fucking saw. I said, I know, and it was so great. It made me so fucking happy due to the fact that he was a severe pain slut to begin with. So he got off on this. He totally got off. He said that each time the clothespin ripped off, I could hear him just, like screaming, like making these like noises. And then as it all completely finished and came off, like once the cock and ball area, he was fucking singing like fucking Pavarotti when he was fucking screaming. And you know what? It was the best thing I ever saw. So at the end of that, he stands there and takes a deep breath and goes, holy shit, Mistress, I can't believe I just did that. He goes, and what a fucking rush. That's what he says to me. I said, yeah, at first you screamed like a little bitch, but actually then at the end you seemed to kind of enjoy it. He goes, oh my God. He goes, what a fucking rush that was. He goes, that was fucking exhilarating. He goes, I felt so free. I said, really? I said, you were free. You were fucking answering and doing every command I asked you to. So I commend you. What an awesome submissive you are. So I trained the guy online for a very long time. It was hard for him to find a mistress in his area. So him and I connected on this femdom site. And I took him under my wing and I had him in my tutelage for probably 10 years or so. And actually, then I got rid of him because he actually found someone close to home. And then his wife found out about me and it was a whole fucking, she was so mad. And then finally, the wife and I had a conversation. And then I taught the wife how to dominate him. So then he didn't need me any longer because his wife was fulfilling his BDSM need. So I guess to some degree, it was a lot of fun. I did a lot of cool things with Slave Gordon. And I think, I still talk to him every so often. And he did say that his wife has been like beating him with newspapers lately and tying him up. She even bought like a St. Andrew's cross and a spanking bench for their house from their spare room. And she, every night after dinner, spanks the living shit out of him, and he really loves it. So, Gordon, if you're listening to the show, I hope you and your mistress wife are doing A-okay. And thanks for all the great memories. I gotta tell you, I did a lot of torturous things to this guy, and he just did it. And that's the act of submission. It's not so much an act. It's either you're submissive or you're not. You either can take an order from somebody and carry out that directive and that with a command and actually do it to succession, or you say you're submissive, and then you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. No fucking way, I'm not doing that. And that's not really topping from the bottom. That's kind of just, you're not really ready for that type of play yet. Whether if you're a beginner, you're definitely not going to do a zip line. If you're a beginner, I recommend doing spankings over the knee, barehanded or with paddles. Self-bondage or bondage on your friend or lover or whoever with fetish tape, pantyhose, and maybe some light rope. You could also take a shibari class or a rope suspension class. A lot of these, on FetLife, they have a lot of these, like munch groups where you can go and meet people in your area and go to a kinky place, and they teach you about stuff like that. Whether like a vanilla or you're kink curious, stuff of that nature, you can absolutely, do that type of stuff. If you ever go to Exotica, they have Kinky College in the Exotica dungeon, which actually has a whole dungeon set up. It's not as fun as it used to be. Years ago, it was much better. You could go in there and interact and spank people. You could come in and be spanked. Now it's like a liability. They don't really do it anymore. But if you go to other places where it's not a liability, and you sign a waiver, you can just go in there and have the spanking of your life. So, these are all different places that you can go and check out stuff. Or go to FetLife and look up kinky clubs in the area, and some stuff usually comes up. So it's, BDSM and kink is pretty interesting. Of course, for me, I've been a dominatrix for 33 years, and I absolutely love it. It's not for everybody. The young girl who I work with today, at the end of the day, she goes, wow, I had a great first day. I got to learn about the office, and I got to learn about some really cool things from you. She goes, I'm definitely going to check out your show. She goes, I think that's pretty awesome, And I said, oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And she goes, I've actually never met a dominatrix before. So she goes, this is even cooler. So I don't know if you can, and I told her, I said, it's not all about dressing in leather and cursing and screaming at people. It's more than that. You have to have trust. You have to have consensuality. You have to have two people consenting. You have to be on the same page for the most part. You have to kind of, read people's body language or use safe words. Or, some people don't read people's body language and they just use safe words. And that to me is not really domination, because you're not really, following or looking closely after your prized possession. You kind of want to just, beat the hell out of them and let them go. You can't do that. So, you got to do some aftercare. You got to warm up your, I always tell people, they're like, oh, how do you play with people? And I'm like, well, I like to tenderize my meat before I play with it. I like to warm up the submissive. It's actually the proper thing to do, is you want to kind of get somebody in the mood before you go and do these things to them. So you kind of want to have the consensuality, and I always discuss this on every show, the SSC, the safe, sane, and consensuality, or the RAC, the risk-aware consensual kink. So you basically want to do those practices in the beginning. Or, you could look around for BDSM 101. I think I have some prior shows about, what to do, what not to do, Velcro collar, scene collar, all of these things into play. So there's all these, different types of stuff. So, for instance, I'm going to get into the emails right now. Here's a great one. I got this one yesterday. Dear Mistress, my name is Scotty BJ. That's what he writes, which I don't know what the fuck that means, but I'm assuming he gives blowjobs, okay? And he writes, how are you? I hope you're great on this evening. I have a couple of questions for you. He goes, have you ever heard of diaper humiliation? And if you have, please tell me about it. He goes, for some reason, I feel the need to be going to stores and buying Depends and putting them on and wetting myself at nighttime in them. So I read the email. I kind of laugh about it. I'm like, all right. It seems to me that Scotty BJ, if you're listening to the show tonight, it seems to me that I would need to know more in detail about it, but it sounds like you're a humiliation junkie. It sounds like you're into infantilism and the whole ABDL, which is adult baby diaper loving fetish freak fantasy. Okay, that's what I like to call it, freaks. I don't really delve too much in ABDL because I don't know, there's something kind of bizarre about a grown man putting on diapers and pretending to be a fucking infant. Okay? I am definitely not changing your shitty diaper when you come to session with me. How do you like them apples? If you shit yourself, you're gonna fucking sit in it like, I don't know, like, I can't even say it. If you shit yourself during one of my sessions, you're gonna be shitting yourself and sitting in it, because I am not wiping your motherfucking ass. I got news for you. Mistress does not want to be a mommy dom, okay? I am not interested in infantilism, nor do I give a fuck or a rat's ass if you want to shit yourself and wet yourself. That's your own fucking business. But what I think about your fetish, I've heard about it before. Like I said, I really don't delve in it that much. There are mistresses that like to be called mommy. I do not like to be called mommy. I think, honestly, BDSM and children don't mix. For me, I'm not even into the age playing. I tried it once or twice or maybe a few times in my 33-year career. But for some reason, again, that's just as me. BDSM and kids don't mix, so I try not to delve in those fetishes. But you're a humiliation junkie, you want to be humiliated, try this one on for size, Scotty BJ. So if you're out in public and you go to the store, you can buy some Depends, or you can go even as far as going online and ordering adult diapers that have like teddy bears on them too. I mean, I don't know what the hell you want to do with them, but be my guest. You could wear them. You could get rubber pants that go over them, and then you can put on your man clothes, and then when you go out in public, you can have the crinkling of the diaper underneath your pants, and then you can hear it just as well as anybody else can hear. They'd be like, what the fuck is that guy got in his pants? So, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. So, Scotty BJ... maybe you want to try giving someone a blowjob with a diaper on. I mean, I don't know. I've heard of guys going into bathhouse and sniffing poppers and jerking off with Depends on. So, I mean, I've been there. I've seen it all. I've heard it all. So there's nothing that I haven't fucking actually seen or heard. So this, my friend, is not anything that's out of the ordinary. I do know about it. I hope I was able to answer some of your, at least something for you. But if you want to know more about your fetish, you can go to Google ABDL, Adult Baby Diaper Lover. That's what it is. Or age play, or diaper humiliation, stuff of that nature. If you're looking to find yourself a mommy dom, good luck, because not a lot of women are into that. So, I mean, unless you find like a male dom who would take you and be your daddy, but then he's going to want to bend you over and fuck you in your ass. So I don't know how great that is. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, because male doms, a lot of them treat like, male submissives and female submissives like sex toys. To me, that's not my style of domination. I would never have sex with a submissive unless I was in a relationship with them. And that's even still like, crossing boundaries to some degree. So, stuff of that nature. Here's another one. Hi, Mistress. I've been listening to your show. My name is Alex, by the way. And it kind of makes me wonder if this was the same Alex that used to call my show many moons ago, but I'm not 100% sure. It just could be a common name. He goes, I really enjoy listening to your show. I've listened to your show in the past. Could you tell me about the foodie feedie fetish? Now, I think a couple of months ago, I did a show about a foodie type fetish where the foodie is the woman who sits and stuffs her face while guys watch this stuff. And the feedie is the guy who brings the woman the food and is kind of like watching her, I guess. So he's into voyeurism of chunky women stuffing themselves. Kind of a weird type. I actually did a show about this. I got to find the season and the episode. It might be in season 1 even that I did under the WHIP Appeal. show. So it's probably either on that or it's on the BDSM Alive radio network. So you may want to look on there. But I did a whole show about feederism, foodie fetish a couple of months back, or maybe even last year. And I hope that would really kind of give you an insight of what you were trying to ask me. So fellas, if you want to send Mistress an email, please go into a little bit more detail about it. Like, a 2-line, email is not really going to get my attention. Although, I prefer a paragraph or at least a paragraph. This is where Mistress is going to get all grammatized now and wants people to, follow fucking, proper grammar and, paragraphs and no run-on sentences. And, no run-on sentences. And please don't bore Mistress. Mistress hates being bored. So if I've heard of your fetish or I've done a show about it, I will let you know and gladly send you an email. But I at least wanted to kind of say that I got your email and at least answer you. Kind of interesting. Then this is the last one. We're going to talk about this for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then Mistress is going to go for the evening. Dear Mistress, I am a 41-year-old woman. I go by the name of Sally. She goes, I have this guy in my life, and he seems to be great, but although he always wants sex. So I'm reading this email, and I'm like, wow, what the fuck is this woman's problem? I want sex, and I get sex. Like, for instance, this week alone, I've had sex more times than most people have probably had in their whole lifestyle, or their whole life. And I'm not bragging, but maybe a little. So then she writes, is there any way that I can get him to not want to have sex? Kind of interesting question. And so I had asked this, I wrote, Dear Sally, I said, why do you not want to have sex with him? Is there something going on? And she's like, no, it's that he wants sex a lot. And I kind of feel that he only is into the sex for himself. That's an interesting factor. Most men in general only care about having sex and coming. They don't care about the act of sex or how to turn on a woman. They just rather throw them on the bed and start fucking them. I'm cool with that too, but I do like to be a little foreplay here and there. So I suggested to Sally, which I'm going to tell you guys right now, I told Sally to invest in a chastity device. And I told her to go for a CB6000, which is made out of plastic, although they make silicone ones now. And it's a chastity device. And I said, I think you should lock up your husband one night, when he's kind of out half in the bag. Lock up his fucking cock and balls, and you have the key. When he goes to wake up in the morning to fucking try to jerk off or to have sex with you, he absolutely cannot. So she goes, ooh, I like that idea. I said, yes. I think most men should be in chastity devices. Not all of them. The ones who can't keep their dick in their pants. Those motherfuckers should be locked in a fucking chastity and the key should be thrown away. But that's another story. So, Sally, I hope this answers your question. I think you should go on Amazon and buy a CB6000. They do make assorted sizes. So, not that I want to know, but is your guy hung? Is he small? So she didn't answer me yet, so I'm kind of waiting for her to get back to me so I can direct her what to buy. And I think, honestly, if she locks his cock up for a week, 2 weeks, can't jerk off, can't masturbate, won't have sex with her, definitely, because she's got the key. I think the next time they go to have sex, I told her to keep him locked up in that chastity device until she gets what she wants. And then when she feels it's necessary, to then release him. But he's got to beg her and ask. So it sounds like he's almost kind of like a sexual deviant, that he's got some really crazy sexual, he's a beast, basically, she was trying to explain. So I had told her the chastity device I think would work pretty fucking damn good, and it would kind of control him a little bit. It gives her some control over him. So I think that, Sally, this is the best way for you to go. I think you should absolutely invest or look to buy a chastity device, especially a CB6000. They do make a CB5000, but the CB6000 is much better. You could also go to metal.com. They have metal chastity devices with urethral plugs. There's all sorts of stuff. You could even do Locked in Lust. They actually have a whole bunch of chastity devices that actually I met them at an Exotica show a couple of years ago, and they had some really great shit. They had like a fucking silicone a chastity device with a urethral plug, which is kind of cool, actually. But a lot of people don't like that feeling of something down their pee hole. But guess what, guys? It's not up to you. It's up to what the woman wants, and what the woman says fucking goes. And especially if you're a sexual deviant and you can't stop either masturbating or you all you want to do is like have sex with your girlfriend with no foreplay. You're going to be fucking locked up, motherfucker. And you're going to be locked up to where you can't even touch your own fucking dick. And it's kind of interesting. I've done a lot of chastity and key holding with submissives throughout the years. And I had this one guy one time. He lived in Canada. He was older. I'm just going to call him Submissive Cano, because that's what I used to call him. Cano, no Cano, because he had some issues. So, to put it mildly. But he kept telling me he kept watching porn and jerking off and masturbating repeatedly, and he couldn't stop himself. He even went to the doctor and couldn't stop himself. So they put him on some sort of medication to lower his libido, but it didn't work. So then he told his doctor that he was trying to find a dominatrix who could actually lock him in a chastity device. And the doctor was like, what? So I met up with this fella online. He became my submissive. He was looking for a key holder. So even though I lived in New York and in Long Island, he actually was in Canada, and he bought the chastity device, and he showed me how many keys came with it. Oh, no. He sent it to me first. I actually opened it, it came with 3 keys. I took 2 keys out and gave him 1 key. Sent him the key and the device back, and he gets it and he goes on webcam and he goes, Mistress, there's only 1 key in here. I said, yep, because I got the other 2 keys. He goes, but you're far away. I said, that's exactly why I did that. I said, you wanted a fucking key holder, right? I'm controlling your fucking cock from thousand miles and states away. I said, and country away. So guess what? You are now my property. I own that fucking cock and those balls, and you are not allowed to touch yourself. So I made him lock himself in the device. I made him go on the camera and get a gallon-sized water jug. He actually has a freezer, and a big chest freezer at the time. So he actually put the key, I told him to put the key in the bottom of the jug of water and shove it in his fucking freezer. He's like, but why? I said, because I don't want you taking that thing off without my fucking permission, goddammit. That's why you're in the fucking device in the first fucking place, because you can't stop jerking off. Seriously. I said, you're going to jerk off so much, you're going to deplete your sperm count. This is what I told him. But it was obviously, it's not true, but it was kind of funny. So the guy puts the device on, and about 2-3 days later, he's calling me, emailing me, made a pest out of himself. And I said, what the hell's the matter with you? He goes, I need to jerk off. I said, you don't need to do that. This is why you're in the device, and I don't think you're ready. And I said no. That's what I told him. He goes, I'm looking at the jug in the freezer. I said, I want to see that fucking jug in the freezer. So I made him go and get it. I also made him set up a camera in his house to where I had access to, so I could watch him. And if he went near the freezer, I would curse and yell at him, and he would have to go out of the room. Talk about fucking control. I controlled him from a country away, controlled his cock, controlled his urge, and controlled him, period. So every time he tried to go near the freezer, I would get a notification that he was trying to go near the camera, and I would say to him, "Get the fuck away from there. I caught you, you little..." I would curse him. He liked to be verbally humiliated. And let me tell you, it was probably one of the most fulfilling, long, online, like long-term type of key holding and chastity that I actually did with this fella, and he enjoyed it. But, he went to the doctor one day, and the doctor was like, he had me, I was on the phone with him, and he told the doctor, he goes, "I met this online mistress who locked me up in a chastity device so I can't touch myself." The doctor started laughing and goes, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, she's fantastic. I have her on the phone. She's listening to this conversation." So I said, "Well, hello, doctor." And he goes, "Oh, hello, ma'am." He goes, "Well, I see and hear that you locked up such and such's privates," because he's a chronic masturbator. He goes, "Well, I've tried all sorts of things with him and nothing seems to stop him, so hopefully this will." He goes, "I never thought to try that because it's not really good practices, but I guess it could work." So I don't know, he was in the device for probably a couple of months, and then one day he couldn't take it anymore, and he's like, "Mistress, you're going to be so mad at me, but I fucked my ass with a dildo just so I could come." I was silent. I said, "Really?" I said, "You fucking milked yourself without my permission?" I said, I should make you wear a butt plug with a fucking lock on it. So what I had him do was, I had him buy a different device, like an old school, old fashioned medieval chastity device that goes around his waist and everything. And I had him buy one with an anal plug, so he couldn't fuck himself in his ass to come. I fucking had him under complete lock and fucking key, and he totally was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do now?" And I said, "Nothing. You have to ask my permission if you want to fucking diddle yourself. And guess what? I'm gonna tell you no. The only way that thing is coming off is you have a proctologist exam or you have a penile doctor exam. Other than that, that shit is fucking staying on." And let me tell you, he was good. He was in that device for a couple of months. So basically the plug that was in the back was small enough to where he could take a crap with it on. You catch my drift? So it wasn't the whole ass, but he literally couldn't fuck himself. So it was quite comical. But then I felt bad, and he was older, and he had a girlfriend, and he's like, "I really got to take this fucking thing off." So I said, all right, it was fun while it lasted. I had him in the medieval chastity device for about 3 or 4 months. And then I took it off. We had him take it off. But it was a lot of fun. So if you have any questions about chastity, key holding, bondage, any kind of kinks or fetishes, you know where to find me. You can email me at bdsmaliveradio@gmail or MistressCandy1969 Please follow me on Twitter at MistressC69, at The WHIP Appeal Show, and at BDSM Alive Radio Network. And you could also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So I hope you enjoyed listening to tonight's show. I want to thank Spunklube, our sponsor for the show. I want to thank Blitzkid, and I want to thank everybody, all of my loyal fans and followers for the continued support of my awesome radio network and the WHIP Appeal. So thank you, and I will talk to you all next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And I hope you have a wonderful, kinky weekend and stay happy, my friends. And have a wonderful evening and good night.